my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tammy Lewis Wilborn. Dr. Wilborn is the author of our forthcoming book, Playing a New Game. I'm so pleased to have her with me to talk about her script flipping book, Playing a New Game, a Black woman's guide to being well and thriving in the workplace. In this book, Dr. Wilborn expands the dialogue on Black and other women of color experiences of race and gender stereotypes at work, exploring them as a wellness issue. Her decades of experience as a Black woman in the workplace and a counseling professional woman of color puts her in the unique position to write this guidebook that helps Black women prioritize their wellness while also being successful in their careers. Dr. Wilborn has been described as essential reading for all Black women currently struggling to navigate race and gender stereotypes at work. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm deeply appreciative. It's been a joy to work on this book with you. And so just wanted to give people a flavor of what they can expect and why this book is so important. I think our first question is like the most important, which is at the beginning, you unpack what the phrase Black girl magic has come to mean in our society and our culture, and how the concept has distorted the reality of Black women's lived experiences at work. So tell us why this is a little bit of a myth.
Yeah, I've actually had some pretty interesting conversations about that, right? Because obviously, right? Because what we understand Black girl magic to mean is that it's a tool of empowerment, right? It's a thing that we sort of buy into, that Black women feel empowered, with this special sort of magical quality. And I really see Black girl magic as akin to the strong Black woman, which is the stereotype that actually emerged in the early 60s and 70s. And it sort of had the strong Black woman sort of had the same quality that Black girl magic did in its infancy, which again, it was meant to be, strong Black woman was meant to be sort of a tool of empowerment, right? We see where that's gotten us. Because strong Black woman, again, because it emerged initially as this sort of tool of empowerment and also this idea of a counter narrative and counter resistance, over time, what it has come to mean is when Black women are perceived as strong Black women and are treated as such, then it leads to, for example, our pain being scrutinized, minimized, and at times penalized. Mm-hmm. When Black women internalize the message, so, and I'm making the connection here to Black girl magic. So when Black women internalize that messaging, it also affects how we perceive and treat ourselves and our pain, right? And so what we know clinically is when we buy into this idea that we have some sort of magical imbuement that no other group of women seem to have, it keeps us from seeking the help that we need. And then we start to sort of silently endure with some of the things that we're dealing with. What's interesting, Nana, is so we're not, in the book, I'm not dismissing the idea that Black girl magic has this beautiful tone of empowerment. But what we know is over time, what happens is it starts to distort the fact that most Black women, by the time we are seen and by the time we're shining, we didn't get there through magic, right? Mm-hmm. We got there hard, right? You're chuckling because you know, right? I know. I love Beyonce, but I did not wake up like this. And we know she didn't either, right? She worked super hard. Everybody knows that Beyonce worked super hard. Yeah. And the same thing is true for most Black women, is that we are shining, not because we just, sort of showed up, but rather we worked really, really hard to get there. And for us to stay where we are, we have to work super hard, twice as hard to stay there. And I think that's the challenge, is it really distorts. Black girl magic, like stereotypes, is a myth because it distorts the true lived experiences of Black women every single day, everywhere, all around the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. That just frames it so well. Obviously, you expand upon that in the book. I found it so intriguing way back when we were first talking because it just made so much sense. And it's something that I've been saying a lot to other people I'm talking to, which is that this is work, this is work. My life isn't the way it is because I'm a magical creature, although maybe I am a little bit. But, I worked really hard. We all work really hard to have what we have. And it's so important to kind of reframe that and also to acknowledge that work. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for that. Um, let's dig a little bit deeper. So in the book, you dig really into how race and gender stereotypes that are rooted in slavery and also perpetuated by culture, popular culture, have created unique barriers that affect Black women both personally and professionally. So how are Black women of the present connected to their ancestors' relationship with work? This is a complicated question. And how has it affected their experience professionally?
I thank you for that question. I think that was why it was really important for me to highlight stereotypes as a specific barrier that Black women have to navigate in the workplace, because stereotypes is actually the through line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stereotypes, race and gender stereotypes is the through line between Black women's contemporary work experiences and their historical work experiences, right? Stereotypes emerged in slavery as a way to distort how Black women were being treated, how they were being punished, how they lived, how they didn't live, right? And so there was a need to create these sort of what Patricia Hill Collins calls these controlling images to really kind of shy away from and move the gaze away from what was actually happening to Black women. And we see the same thing now in contemporary work experiences, right? And so if for example, if an employer buys into the idea that Black women, for example, or let's say the strong Black woman, if we come to you and say, I need a mental health day, you're confused, right? Because perhaps in your mind, again, if you're not able to see my humanity, you can't see my pain, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the real danger of stereotypes, is it distorts our humanity, and in doing so, it dehumanizes us. The challenge is not only when others perceive that, the challenge is when we also buy into that. And that's the other piece that I talk about in the book, is that it's stereotypes impact us professionally, not just because of the ways in which others perceive and treat us, but also the true injury comes when we buy into them. I did a training yesterday. I'll say this really quick. I did a training. I was called in a wellness not a training, but a group facilitation for a school here in New Orleans. And one of the women said, we were sort of going around the end, sort of doing a roundabout towards the end. And she said to the group, I am committing to take a vacation. And so others in the group started chuckling. And I said, and me knowing this work, I said, you all are chuckling, but there's a reason why she said that. And she looked up sternly and she said, yes, I haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. Mm. So again, The impact is not only how these stereotypes and these experiences hinder our advancement and development as professionals or as working women, but it also hinders our ability to take care of ourselves and set healthy boundaries at work. Yeah. And self-care. Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just so like, I see those habits in myself. I very clearly remember seeing them in my own mom, who would often complain of never taking a vacation. And, she felt like she really couldn't. And I saw how that wore her down, and I see how it wears other folks like us down all the time. So all of that is just, it's so important. Thank you. Thank you for exploring that with me. Sure. So before we let you go, I have just one more question for you. And I think it's an important question. It's a popular question because I think everyone's kind of doing this work. But you write about boundaries and how they're crucial for women of color who exist in the workplace. What are some ways that Black women and other women of color can spot situations at work that require professional boundary? And can you talk about what are some of the costs of poor boundaries?
Sure, absolutely. So I think one of the ways that we see the ways in which these poor boundaries sort of show up. So again, when Black women internalize it, it means perhaps that we're not taking those breaks, right? Or we're not prioritizing self-care, or we're taking on too many responsibilities because we think we're supposed to, right? I see this quite often at Black women, again, because we've internalized these stereotypes about us that we are the ones that can sort of magically carry the load, we tend to carry the load plus 10. And so oftentimes we are not sort of staying in our lane, and as a matter of fact, sort of crossing the lane and doing too much, essentially. And of course, when others buy into that notion, they also sort of feed into this idea that we should be grateful, right? We should be grateful to have, to be in the position to be asked to be the team player. And again, there's nothing wrong with being a team player, but if you're paying me you're not even paying me enough to be the team player, but you're expecting me to do 10 jobs somebody else. I don't know if I need to be on this team. And so the question, the second part of the question is, what are the implications? So professionally, we see the implications of these poor boundaries as being tasked with too many work responsibilities for which we're not being compensated for. We see the professional implications of poor boundaries as, again, not responding to our needs when we come and say, for example, I need to take a mental health day. Those requests are not being acknowledged. And then on the flip side of that, when we internalize that, we see, as I talk about in the book, the wellness implications of poor boundaries. And that's really what this book tries to get across. We know professionally what happens with stereotypes in Black women in the workplace, but what we talk less about is the personal implications of these experiences. And that's what Playing the New Game is looking to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really wonderful book. It's not just about the theory. There are actual tools and practices that Dr. Wilborn will offer in the book. So it's fully practical, like we like a balanced book to be. Dr. Wilborn, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We're looking out for your book, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for having me.
Take
care, everybody.